evening. I will now call the Camp Hill Borough Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Right now, our visual isn't working, but if you all have, it would just show the agenda. If you don't have one and want to grab one from the table, please do. And Sarah, can you please call the roll?
Thomas Fink. Here. Michelle Forbes.
Here.
Rich Forsman.
Here.
Tim Jackson. Here. Luis Solasova. Here. Kevin Mock. Here. Tia Wolf. Here. Alexandra Jackson.
Here. Thank you. At this time, we'll open our first period of public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I'm asking our solicitor, least in it, to time to make sure that the 3-minute limit is being followed. I'd also like to remind everyone that public comment is public comment. It's not a time where we can have a back and forth about things, but it's a time for us to learn what your thoughts and concerns are. So, if anyone would like to come up, please do.
Fabulous. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Before I jump into my comments, I just wanted to make a plug for Community Game Night that's starting on Friday here in Borough Hall from 6 to 9, ages 13 and older. Bring your own games and your snacks, and hope to see you there. Oh, Sherry Bowman, 498 North 25th Street. Thank you. I want to be a good role model here for the rest of these folks. Now for my comments. First off, I want to thank the council for being proactive in discussing this issue this evening and taking time to thoughtfully consider how federal immigration enforcement may affect our borough and our residents. So thank you. I support considering an ordinance that clarifies how our borough police interact with federal immigration enforcement. This issue really has both a practical public safety dimension as well as a moral dimension for our community. First, let me cover the practical side. Our police department has just returned to full staffing after many months of being short officers. Our residents depend on them to respond to emergencies, prevent crime, and keep our neighborhoods safe. Their time and resources are limited, and their focus should remain on local policing priorities, not on carrying out federal immigration enforcement. Secondarily, community trust matters. Public safety works best when residents trust the police enough to report crimes, cooperate with investigations, and call for help when something is wrong. When local policing becomes intertwined with immigration enforcement, people become less likely to come forward even when they're victims, and that weakens safety for everyone. I also want to be clear about something. My concern isn't about whether or not immigration law should be enforced. Absolutely, immigration law is federal law and it should be enforced by federal agencies. My concern is how the enforcement's carried out. Across the country, we're seeing immigration enforcement practices that raise serious concerns about policing standards and training, agents operating masks without clear identification, reports of people being stopped and asked to prove citizenship without clear cause. These types of practices undermine public trust and raise legitimate questions about constitutional rights and accountability. I also recognize that some believe local police should fully cooperate with immigration and enforcement because they want the laws enforced and the communities kept safe. I do respect that perspective. I believe that we all ultimately want the same thing, a safe community where laws are enforced fairly and responsibly. But local governments also have a responsibility to speak clearly about the standards we expect for policing in our communities and about the proper roles of local and federal law enforcement. In many ways, the conversation really comes down to a simple principle: clear roles make for better policing. When responsibilities are clearly defined, our officers can focus on the work they were hired and trained to do, and our community knows what to expect. Clarifying these roles protects our officers, our residents, our rights, and the integrity of local policing. At its best, good government sets clear rules, supports its police, and protects the trust that keeps a community safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Borough Council, Ray Givler, also 498 North 25th Street. Also speaking about the immigration issue, I have a series of rhetorical questions. First, on accountability, we already have at the local and state level officers who show their faces and who have body cameras, and why wouldn't we want that same standard for federal officials? I realize that federal law has supremacy, but I see value in stating formally what the borough does support. Secondly, on warrants, the Fourth Amendment says that no one's home can be entered without a judicial warrant, and we are well aware that in most cases ICE does not have these. So why would anyone oppose any sort of ordinance that just reinforces our constitutional rights? Lastly, on local sovereignty, the Supreme Court has ruled that the federal government cannot compel state and local governments to enforce federal law. And this is not a loophole. It is a constitutional firewall against overreach, the kind of overreach we are already seeing in other areas. So why would we want our town to surrender authority if the Supreme Court already says we don't have to? Lastly, based on whistleblower testimony in Congress, ICE is dangerously undertrained, so why invite that sort of risk to our town? I think they will work wherever it's easiest, so I see no point in making it easy for them to make a lethal mistake in Camp Hill. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Jessica Miller, and I'm the director of the Frederickson Library, which is a few blocks down the road. I'm sure most of you have been there. It's a really wonderful library. If you haven't had a chance, please stop by. We're happy to show you around. Just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. Last year, we checked out about 600,000 items to everyone. Camp Hill residents checked out 90,080 of those. So those are physical items, everything from books to movies to audiobooks, as well as ebooks and audiobooks that have been downloaded onto their computers. We also offer computer access and a lot of other services if you haven't been by recently. We do a ton of programming as well. We had 36,212 people attend programs last year. Those aren't all just from Camp Hill, but quite a few of them were. We, as I'm sure you know, as Sarah's very familiar with, we're currently received a Keystone grant, and so we're doing a lot of facilities projects. We will be replacing the roof between April 13th and May 1st. Our thermostat system is going to be worked on, I think, before June. We don't quite have those dates set yet. And we're having a boiler replaced as well, likely once we no longer need the boiler anymore. So we're thrilled to have those projects coming. We'll be adding solar panels by August 31st. Depends on their availability. They're kind of busy. And we also are getting openers for a couple of bathroom doors. So we're very excited about that. In addition, we are also getting estimates to replace our sidewalks. And thank you, Colton, for coming back to remark us. We appreciate that. But yeah, so there's a lot of really great things happening at the library. Just a couple of fun reminders. If you have anyone who is looking for a state job, we're having a couple sessions about that are specifically tips for applying for PA state jobs. And we've been working with the governor's office to have those coming up. So they're not until late May, but there's something to be aware of. So May 26th and May 28th, we're having those sessions. We also Earlier today, we had a Tooth Fairy story time. It was very popular, so I think Jess is looking to have that again for our children. And we're also running a lot of STEAM programming, and we're running some coding classes right now with Scratch. So those are the second, third, and fourth Mondays from 6 to 7. They're very popular. They're designed for kids. It's a very child-friendly class, and it's very drag and drop and very visual. So if you know of anyone who'd be interested in any of those, please send them our way. Otherwise, does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for all that you do.
My name is Margaret Connors. I live at 223 North 23rd Street. I was raised in the borough, and I was delighted to return to the borough after 30 years in Phoenix. When I drop my tax payment into the box down here, I smile. Not because I love giving them money, but because I know some of that money goes to our police department. It's really wonderful. Even when they give me a ticket for parking too close to the stop sign on our corner, they are polite. I can see who they are because they have no masks on their faces. I know who they are because they have something on their uniform that tells me who they are. And I know that they are following through with reasonable rules for living with each other in this town. I am not interested in my tax money going to support federal rules unless they are obviously, somebody has a warrant that needs to be served, something like that. So I want to say, please, keep our excellent police department working for us in Camp Hill Borough. We appreciate them, and that's who they should be working for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Okay. So my announcement is to thank our staff for the open house that we had prior to our meeting tonight. Colton and Lester, Matt? I thought it was Matt, sorry. And Matt explained the whole sidewalk paving process to us. So thank you very much, and we learned a lot about that. Sarah, could we have the manager's report, please?
Good evening. I'm reporting that the Pennsylvania Municipal League will hold their district meeting tomorrow here in Prosser Hall. We'll be very pleased to host this group of municipal leaders from around our region, and we're going to introduce them to Camp Hill. We have a Birdtown PA committee. I'm excited to report that our committee has achieved a silver designation from the Pennsylvania Birdtown organization. So they jumped right over bronze and went to silver. In our first full year's report, we attained 61 points in 4 strategy areas. To achieve silver status, the points achieved must be at least 16. The 4 strategy areas where our group excelled were municipal actions, community and individual engagement, organizations, collaborations, and partnerships, and advocacy and promoting awareness. Our Birdtown Committee has great enthusiasm, and they are already underway with activities and planning for 2026. And I also wanted to thank everyone for having me here in Camp Hill. I've been here for 5 years as of this month, and I'm really proud of the work that we have accomplished together during my time here, and thankful for the continuing opportunity to serve this community. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. We are also thankful that you were serving our community. We'll now have the mayor's report. Mark?
Thank you. Congratulations, Sarah, on 5 years. We're glad you're here. Police Department ran 865 calls for service in February, and brings the year-to-date total to 1,669. Our 4 new police officers continue their field training with FTOs, field training officers. They're doing really well. Most likely they'll be wrapping that up in sometime in April. Is that correct? April or May, okay. Camp Hill Fire Department, finally today we finished getting the P25 radios installed. It's all done now, and this new system's working well. We have training every Monday evening, beginning at 7 p.m. We are in the midst of our annual recertification for hazardous materials and our annual training on bloodborne pathogens. Also, every Thursday evening for our new members, we hold training specifically geared to them. 2 weeks ago at the public safety meeting, I had prepared a statement that I read, and I'm just going to read it again tonight for those of you that that haven't seen that. Sorry. As mayor of Camp Hill, I want to address something that I believe is critically important to our community. Policing in our borough must remain professional, impartial, and grounded in the rule of law, not politics. Under the Pennsylvania Borough Code, the mayor has oversight responsibilities for the police department. That responsibility is not about That responsibility is not about partisanship. It is about ensuring policies and procedures align with the Constitution, Pennsylvania law, and best practices in public safety. Our Camp Hill police officers take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They do not swear allegiance to political parties, personal opinions, or ideological movements. Their duty is to protect and serve every resident fairly and equally. When political views or agendas enter into police policy decisions, public trust can erode. Officers deserve clarity and consistency. Residents deserve confidence that laws are enforced objectively, without bias, and without influence from shifting political winds. Camp Hill has always valued civility, professionalism, and community trust. My commitment as mayor is to ensure our police department remains focused on public safety, constitutional policing, and serving all members of our borough with integrity and respect. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now have the engineers report. Matt?
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I have 3 transportation projects to report on this evening, the first being the curb ramp project for this year. So for those of you who were on council last year, as a refresher, and those of you that are new, the 2025 curb ramp project last year, we had a change in contractor that didn't really let us get off the ground. And so once we got that second contractor in place, their schedule had kind of changed from the original bidding time, but where we were at the time, discussed things with the grant agency, they were willing to allow this year's curb ramps to be installed with that contractor, and that contractor graciously said that they could take on the 2026 project. So right now, we are currently working with them. It is H&P Construction to get pricing for those additional curb ramps for this year. There's currently a highway occupancy permit that has been filed with PennDOT for the intersection of 15th and Market Street. There's 2 ramps that'll need to be done there. We did already conduct a pre-construction meeting with this contractor, but given the delay since that has happened and now the addition of the extra work, we're looking to set up most likely a Teams meeting with them, our staff, Lester as well, to just kind of review that project again and the new work that'll be included. And right now we're anticipating work will get started here in April or May. We also have this year's paving project. We are currently out to bid on that one. We're expecting those bids back by April 13th. We're then going to discuss those bids with the Public Works Committee at their April meeting, and then we'll be looking to request action from council at your May meeting. Once that's awarded, we will actually have a little bit of a delay before we're going to be ready to pave there. That's going to allow for UGI and PA American to do all the utility work that they are doing in the paving areas. That way, they can be done digging up the street, and what will go back in will be a nice finished product and won't get torn up again by them anytime soon. Finally is the Lenox Street project, the connection of 19th Street and 21st Street there. Goal to add a safe pedestrian pathway for the children, both morning and afternoon, to get to and from school. Discussion was had at the last Public Works Committee meeting about where might be the best location for that, be that the north or the south side, how exactly we want to do that. So right now, our office is preparing some additional sketches that will be provided and then discussed at the next Public Works meeting here next week. And that is our report.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Could I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Tom moved, Louisa second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will now proceed with our reports for commissions and liaisons. We start with public safety. Tim?
Thank you. The Public Safety Committee met on Thursday, February 26th, and discussed several items. The first being where Chief Margison spoke about the quarterly Camp Hill Police Crime Prevention Bulletin, which is available on the Camp Hill Police page. He also encouraged residents to sign up for the bulletin through the email subscription. Mayor talked a little bit about the portable radio system that was kicked off and now fully operational as of February 17th. Additionally, the mayor also talked about the shortage that the borough has in terms of firefighters. And so with some collaboration with the district, the fire department will be provided some time with the school in order to have an audience with the students in order to garner some interest around the fire department, give them some more information, and see if that number can increase. We also talked about the principle of Vision Zero. So for those that may not be familiar, the goal for Vision Zero is to eliminate any vehicle-related fatalities or serious injury within communities. The committee considered Vision Zero and determined that the resource allocation and effort were not something that the borough can bear. We will, however, implement Vision Zero principles within our comprehensive plan when possible. And then lastly, for the discussion we're prepared to have today about immigration and custom enforcement, we're prepared to have that discussion at this time?
Yes.
Super. And what I'd like to do is do two things. The first being just a preamble of what I see the conversation being about. The second being covering the pieces and the purpose of such an ordinance. And then I would like for each of the council members to provide their opinion and insight of what they have in terms of considering such an ordinance. I will also pass the same opportunity to Chief Margison and Mayor Simpson. And so in terms of the goal, we're looking to have a proactive discussion about the borough's role in the event that immigration and customs enforcement expands operation in our municipality. I say expands because although I don't have any personal knowledge of past enforcement activity, there have been residents who have reported such activity and are aware of that activity in the borough. The objective here is for council to determine whether the body would consider planning and zoning, working with the solicitor to develop an ordinance, and if so, the components that council may include. I believe everyone has received the legislation, the ordinance for reference that we'll be talking about in general, offering our thoughts and opinions. And further, I'd like to state that this evening's discussion is rooted in the committee's effort to clarify the borough's role and responsibility as it pertains to any federal agency activity within a borough, while also considering resident impact. There are several purposes of considering of an ordinance, and I just want to read those off. The first is to support Camp Hill Police Department in their efforts to protect borough residents and the general public. Next is to recognize the professionalism of the department in their enforcement of local, state, and federal law, uphold community trust, ensure efficient use of borough resources, affirm the borough's desire to be a safe, inclusive, and welcoming community, reaffirm the borough's commitment to prevent discriminatory practices, ensure the protection of constitutional rights, and keep our streets safe and walkable. And with that, I'd like to start with Rich for any comments that you might have.
Thank you, Tim. So I spent the last couple of days reading through the proposed ordinances and some of the other ordinances that have been enacted recently, as well as a number of resident emails that have come in over the last couple of weeks. And I think there was one overarching theme here with most of these emails and even some of the comments tonight. It's not about immigration enforcement in particular. I think most of us are okay with enforcing illegal immigration. The big thing is the impact on people's constitutional rights that are being violated that we've seen recently in other states. I'm not against any kind of an ordinance that would at least put some kind of clarity on what we want to see out of federal enforcement if they do come to town. The idea of coming into the area masked without any kind of identification, I mean, it equates to almost a daylight abduction in some cases that we've seen. We don't want to see that happening here in Camp Hill. And I think that just falls right into resident safety. And not only that, but making our community a welcoming community. So for me, anything that we may come up with that does, I guess, codify the behavior we expect out of our law enforcement when they come here, and as long as they're here to execute a legal warrant or stop a crime that is in process, then I have no problem supporting that ordinance.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Me? Okay, so just because I don't do anything brief. So for the past more than 4 years, I've been on the Public Safety Committee, and I've studied the police manual, met with our officers, attended the police academy, and I was even invited to one of the de-escalation trainings. And I have to say that I'm incredibly impressed with our police department. The people that serve our community are just amazing, hardworking, and caring people. But as we were reminded at the last public safety meeting and again here tonight, our police swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Pennsylvania Constitution. And I'd like to point out a few sections. For the Pennsylvania State Constitution, Section 1 discusses the rights of mankind, which states that all men are born with inherent and indefeasible rights, not just citizens. Security from searches and seizures, in Section 8, which states that searches and seizures must have a warrant that states probable cause. Section 20, which addresses the citizens' rights to peaceably assemble together for their common good. And Section 29, which states equal rights under the law will not be denied or abridged. And the United States Constitution also repeats these rights in different places in their 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments. Our police department also follows a code of ethics, which states in part, and this is a quote, they state that as a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve the community, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all, liberty, equality, and justice. Another important point, I think, is that our department has been working short-staffed. These officers have worked without complaint, without shortages. They just stepped up and they did this. And I think that that shows their commitment to us as a community. When complaints come in to public safety, either by email or for residents coming, the community asks us to stop drivers from going through red lights, or not stopping at stop signs, or address speeding, or e-scooters not being permitted, things that keep our community safe. And no one has ever emailed us in the years that I've been here that say they're concerned that a person is undocumented. So I believe that an ordinance should give clear guidance that our community, our local police departments are not federal agents but part of the community. Unless there is evidence of a crime or a valid judicial warrant that requires their assistance, our police should not be asked to assist ICE. Their goals and our goals are not the same. I'm also concerned that if we were to get involved, our police department were to get involved, it's something that we would later be held responsible for. A lawsuit would not be covered by the federal agency. It would be borne by us, the taxpayer. I'm also concerned that if we participate in any random stops to ask for proof of citizenship or legal residency, we're targeting a vulnerable population that we profess to support. I don't support law enforcement agents covering their faces, hiding their identity. I expect them to follow our example of using body cameras. I do not believe we should give federal agents access to our property, our tax dollars, or for those of us that live here. And our local police have a different mission than federal immigration agents, and we need a clear line to separate them. This is not political, but it's constitutional, ethical, and responsible. Council members also swore an oath. And while these conversations may be difficult, our goals are to protect and support everyone in our community, and we need to be mindful of what will be left after ICE leaves. So I thank you for indulging me with my long comments.
Thank you, Michelle. Tom?
Okay, first of all, I want to say I really appreciated the mayor's comments, and it'd be really good to get that in the minutes, but maybe what you need to do is print it and give it to Beth. But I think you're going to find we're in 100% agreement with that. Question number one is, do we really need this ordinance to go through all this effort? What's the likelihood of ICE coming in and doing what they did in Minneapolis and Chicago and Los Angeles, et cetera? Well, it's a very low probability, but it's not zero. So I think leaning toward being prepared, I think is a good idea to have something in place. There are areas in the community where there might be people who there'd be some attempt to extract. The other thing I wanted to say, well, I want to say more than one more thing. This is not an anti-ICE kind of ordinance that we're talking about. ICE has legitimate functions, but we've seen across the country an overstep, an exaggerated enforcement that, as people have pointed out, clearly violate legal rules and constitutional principles. We are supportive of proper police actions, as other people have commented. We would not constrain our local police from carrying out proper safety-related procedures. We just don't want them involved in the extraction process. We're supportive of legal and constitutional rules and guidelines, as I said, have not always been followed by ICE. I don't have to elaborate that. Everybody has TV and has seen what has occurred. We don't want to see a scene like Minneapolis or Chicago, et cetera, in Camp Hill. So is an ordinance needed? Well, low probability, but my argument is let's be prepared and let's put something together that makes sense to everybody involved. I'd like to think that what we're doing is supportive of American traditions, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and from that perspective, it's nonpartisan. Now, we're Democrats here on the board, but I think this goes beyond that, and we're trying to be nonpartisan. Final comment with regard to the use of administrative versus judicial warrants to come into a person's home, to suspend the Fourth Amendment. An administrative judge, even though the word judge is there, is not a part of the judicial division of our government. And it represents, in many people's opinion, an overstep of the executive branch. In the history of America, this has happened time and time again. And it's been up to the states and local communities to fight back. And that's what we're doing. We're defending the Constitution. So is this a feel-good kind of ordinance? Well, it does make us feel good, but I think it has a practical value. And we certainly are going to take input from everybody, and this will be a process that's open and visible to the community. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Louisa?
Okay, Tom, you forgot I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent.
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, back to the topic at hand. As an immigrant myself, this is a personal issue. I don't want to be deported because somebody doesn't like my accent. I don't want to be stripped of my citizenship for exercising my First Amendment. So I think we, as a borough, we have a duty to protect our most vulnerable residents. And we also have a duty to protect all of our residents from government overreach. So having said that, I think that our Planning and Zoning Committee, of which I'm a member, should consider drafting an ordinance that does exactly that. And I hope Tom will put it on the agenda soon.
It's on the agenda for the 20th of this month, 8:15 in the morning.
Thank you, Louisa. Kevin?
So I want to provide a bit of context. My daughter, who is in middle school, her best friend is from Mexico, just moved to Camp Hill this year. We had two neighbors that are from Cameroon, one of whom had just gotten their U.S. citizenship 3 years ago. We had another neighbor that was from Iran that we took the train to Philadelphia to help them to get their citizenship. Camp Hill has an immigrant community. It is not our responsibility to identify who is a legitimate person in Camp Hill and who's undocumented. It is not the police force's job to do that either. As it was made earlier, a public comment about the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has already affirmed that immigration enforcement is the sole responsibility of the federal government. It's not the police department's job to do that. Unfortunately, I disagree with the mayor. This issue has already been politicized at the federal level. There's nothing that we can do about that. What we're trying to do is establish safeguards for our own community, both people that are here, residents, and for our police force. I'm on planning and zoning as well, and I look forward to seeing the ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Tia, please.
Thanks for the opportunity to discuss this with the full council. Some of the themes I'm going to talk about were mentioned during public comment and from some of my fellow council members this evening, but I want to take this opportunity to share my thoughts on the topic. When we talk about adopting something like a welcoming ordinance and how our police department works with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I think it's important to start with what that really means at the municipal level. As we've mentioned a few times tonight, this is not about setting immigration policy. That authority sits with the federal government and its agencies. What we're deciding is something much more local and practical, which is how our borough government operates, how our police builds trust with all residents, and how we ensure our policies reflect both constitutional protections and the kind of community that we want Camp Hill to be. Any welcoming ordinance we adopt, I believe, should focus on a few key principles. First, any welcoming ordinance should reinforce the principle that local policing works best when residents trust law enforcement. Community policing depends on people feeling safe enough to report crimes, call for help, cooperate with investigations, and serve as witnesses. When residents fear that contact with local police, it might lead that contacting them will lead to immigration consequences. They are far less likely to report crimes, and that makes everyone less safe. The International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Major Cities Chiefs Association have warned about this dynamic. When local police are perceived as immigration agents, trust erodes and investigations become harder. A welcoming ordinance helps clarify that our local police are here to protect everyone who lives in our community, and that strengthens public safety. Second, a welcoming ordinance should recognize that immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. Our police department's job is to enforce state and local law, respond to emergencies, and keep our community safe. Programs like 287G blur that line by asking local officers to act as federal immigration agents and effectively deputizing them. And this raises an important question for us as a borough. Should local taxpayer-funded police resources be used to carry out federal immigration enforcement? Our officers already have significant responsibilities to our community, and we should not be diverting resources away from what our residents expect them to focus on. Declining participation in programs like 287G simply keeps our local policing focused on local public safety. Another key element of a welcoming ordinance is ensuring that our policies respect constitutional protections. One of the most important issues here involves immigration detainers and administrative warrants. Under the Fourth Amendment, individuals have the right to be free from unreasonable detention without proper legal authority. When local jurisdictions hold individuals based solely on the basis of an administrative immigration warrant, courts have found that municipalities can face legal risk because those warrants do not meet the same judicial standards as criminal warrants. Policies that require a judicial warrant before honoring detention requests help ensure that our borough is operating within constitutional boundaries. In other words, these policies reinforce the Constitution rather than undermine it. I also think it's important to look at this through the lens of what kind of community Camp Hill really wants to be. When we talk about the vision for the borough, we often use words like vibrant, welcoming, connected, and safe. Those values don't just apply to our parks, our downtown initiatives, or our walkability. They apply to how people really experience living here. A welcoming ordinance signals that Camp Hill is a place where residents feel safe participating in civic life, families feel comfortable accessing our services, workers and business owners feel part of the community, and people trust their local institutions. Communities thrive when they feel they belong and they feel safe engaging with local government. That sense of belonging is a key part of what makes the borough vibrant. I also want to address some concerns I've heard about adopting a welcoming ordinance or declining participation in programs like 287G. I've heard there are concerns about this being anti-police. I respectfully disagree. Supporting our local police officers means giving them clear guidance, protecting them from legal risk, and allowing them to focus on their core responsibilities. I've also heard the argument that ICE is not actively here, so there's not a reason to adopt a policy. To me, this is actually one of the strongest arguments for having a policy in place. Good governance is about setting clear expectations before problems arise, not just reacting after the fact. We know that this is happening in our neighboring municipalities, and we are doing a disservice to our community if we are not prepared. Welcoming ordinance are proactive policies. They provide clarity to our residents, to our law enforcement, and to borough staff about how our municipality approaches these situations if they occur. This clarity prevents confusion, protects the borough legally, and helps everyone understand the rules. I've also heard the concern that adopting an ordinance could somehow attract immigration enforcement activity. There is no evidence to suggest that local welcoming ordinances increase federal immigration enforcement activity. I've talked with some of the folks over in Carlisle who adopted a similar ordinance back in 2023. This has not invited additional activity. These ordinances aren't meant to prevent federal enforcement. They simply define how our local government and police participate. Ultimately, this conversation is about local governments. A thoughtful welcoming ordinance should reinforce trust between residents and local law enforcement, keep local policing focused on our community's public safety, protect constitutional rights of our residents, reduce legal risk to the borough, and support the kind of vibrant, welcoming community that Camp Hill wants to be. These are practical goals that serve the entire community, not just our immigrant population, although incredibly important. Regardless of where people stand on national immigration policy, our responsibility here as borough council members is to ensure that Camp Hill's policies support effective policing, respect constitutional protections, and reflect the values of the community we serve. I believe a welcoming ordinance does exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. I'll keep my comments brief, only to the extent I want to be transparent about my position. That is, I support consideration of such an ordinance. We can talk as a council what the language looks like, but my history with the borough and Camp Hill Police is a little different and a little bit longer than maybe some others over here. So when we talk about the support of the police department, I think I'm a great example of that. I started working with Chief Margerson, I was thinking 6 or 7 years ago, prior to my time on council. As a result of our interactions, I decided to consider the appointment of being on the Civil Service Commission. I belonged to that commission for a couple years and ultimately serving as the chairman of that commission. The reason is because I believe in our department, I believe in the partnership that I've had, and is also the reason why I now chair the Public Safety Committee to continue that work. And so that said, I come at it from a more practical standpoint, in the sense that an ordinance for me is obviously of value, but when I take a look at the process of hiring the right folks, retaining the right folks, and making sure that they're the right people for our community, I understand completely how difficult a task that is for Chief Margerson and Mayor Simpson. And so that said, I want to keep their jobs as simple as possible. That is to rely on the training that the borough depends upon them to provide, make sure that there's clarity in the roles that we count on them to effect. And then, to my knowledge, that training does not include federal law enforcement training. I think the expectation for considering some of those aspects gets a little bit confusing, and I want to make sure that the folks that we have in uniform are there to protect and serve our community and our residents, regardless of status. I want to make one thing clear, and I can't remember which one of us said it, but the ordinance that we could consider, in my view, would need to include language that would allow our officers to respond if there's a crime being committed. I think that's an important add, so we don't have to even have the conversation of our officers making any kind of decision related to their law enforcement duties. I do also see this as apolitical, as Kevin had mentioned. In the sense that I don't see anything political about being human. I don't see anything political about treating people as humans. I don't see anything political about the responding agency or officers identifying themselves or what their purpose is in a lawful manner. Those are my comments, and I welcome any comments that Chief Margerson or Mayor Simpson might have.
Thank you. Just want to say that, I mean, the safety of every borough resident is at the top of our list. I mean, that's why we're here. We have no desire to enter into any 287G agreement with ICE whatsoever. We would not come to council and ask you to consider that. We don't want to do that. My biggest concern is, and it's been stated by Tim, I want it to be very clear to our officers what they can and cannot do. I don't want them out there and have to second guess making a split-second decision and then worrying about whether it was right or wrong. So that's pretty much where I'm at. And Chief.
Excuse me. I think a couple of times last year we had a brief discussion at council meetings on this. I want to reiterate something the mayor just said. We, as a municipal police department, we're not interested in conducting ICE investigations or immigration enforcement. I think you all were aware of that from a couple of discussions that we had last year. To me, the tricky part or the questioning aspect of it. Again, we talked about this. What's going to be our role if we are requested to support or back up some ICE people when they're out doing their mission, and for some reason or another they request assistance? So I think that is one of the things that if there's going to be an ordinance that we really need to discuss, and I look forward to having discussions with the solicitor and the certainly Public Safety Committee about that, because as several of us have alluded to, and the mayor just commented, I don't want to see our officers be placed in a situation where there is any confusion over whether or not it's appropriate or legal based on a local restriction for them to participate, support, back up in any case with some representatives of ICE who are out there trying to do their function. One thing, I can't remember who said it, we don't do any random stops regardless of citizenship. The only reason and the only justification for any kind of stops that our local police would stop a citizen, whether it be a vehicle, there has to be some reasonable suspicion or probable cause, both legal standards for us to stop a person, to stop them, detain them. So there's going to be no randomness in our jobs, regardless of the existence of ICE or not. Again, our concern from a police standpoint is we too want clarity. We don't want there to be confusion in rapidly evolving, tense, fluid events that can occur out there on the street without a bunch of planning or advance notice. Finally, I would simply say that, and it's not unique to any possible immigration or ICE situation, we actually have and have had for over 5 years at least a policy which we actually train and review it, and officers are tested on it every year, of a duty to intervene. Any time one of our officers were to observe anyone's civil rights or constitutional rights being violated, our officers have a duty to intervene, whether it's one of their coworkers or an officer from another law enforcement agency. I'm happy to say that we have not had to experience that issue with any of our officers, and I hope that we don't get into a situation. But I will finally say that our police officers, police are probably the biggest critics of other police and law enforcement people when they act inappropriately in some way, and that can be all the way from inappropriate language to a use of deadly force. I look forward to further discussions with public safety, and I'm sure I'm going to want to talk an awful lot with the solicitor about the discussion of such an ordinance.
Maybe, Chief, you could come to the 20th, the meeting on the 20th, when we look at, there's a zoning, planning and zoning. Okay. 8:15 in the morning. Time enough to get coffee. Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my report, and I appreciate the discussion.
Oh, before we move on, I just want to say that from here, does everyone feel that what they said would be reflected, and are we going to look at writing an ordinance? Right, like I thought our goal was to say, is that something we want?
I think we all expressed a desire to.
So does that work with everyone, that that's something that you'd like them to do? And then are there any components that you feel we didn't discuss that you would want them to be aware of when they draft an ordinance?
If you're
Not to
ask-
put everybody on the spot.
Yeah, if you're asking me, I think maybe Chief covered it a little bit, but I would look for planning and zoning to work with the solicitor on, based on the feedback that we have, the ordinances that we've reviewed, and then I'd like to see that draft come before public safety, so that we can make sure that everyone's aligned with the
It's going to be
language.
a very open process, and in some sense, we want a wish list. What do people think ought to be in the ordinance? We got some ideas tonight. But when we read over the other ordinances, I think we can get a master list of ideas and then run it by the solicitor.
And planning and zoning is public.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right? Not usual that we have this discussion or these kinds of discussions that are usually on the committee level that we're having in public at a council meeting, but this is something that I'm really glad that we are discussing with everybody here because it affects, not that everything doesn't affect all of us, but I believe that everybody has thoughts about this, so I'm really happy that we could have this discussion. However, we will move from public safety to public works. Louisa.
Do you want to remind everybody, if they want to say anything else on this topic, that there are 2 more public comment periods?
Oh, yeah, you guys. Right, we'll have 2 more public comment periods for you to give any other feedback that you've thought of. Thanks, Louisa.
Okay, Public Works. So we have one action item, which is to consider the appointment of Colby Snyder as the Borough Sewage Enforcement Officer and Michelle Vida as alternate Sewage Enforcement Officer. Now, these are both with HRG, is that correct? Okay, so to give you all the backstory to that, and you will probably hear about it too in the planning and zoning report. So Public Works has recently become aware that there are properties in the borough that have on-lot sewer systems that are not connected into the public sewer. In the current ordinance, it just says that on-lot systems are not permitted, period. So to deal with this situation that we didn't know about until recently, we are going to pass an ordinance which we will put up for a vote to advertise today. So Tom will explain that, how that works, to address this issue so that existing on-lot systems are properly operating and pass all the required inspections. So for that, we are required to appoint a sewer enforcement and an officer. So those are these 2 names that HRG put forward, and that's our action item for today. Now, in other public works business, we were discussing about demarcating all legal parking spots on the south side of Market Street between 24th and 19th. This would just make it easier for people to find legal spots and to clarify where exactly it's permissible to park. And we discussed, we don't have a cost estimate for it yet, and we also don't have any line item in the 2026 budget to do that. So this will be part of the budget discussion for next year, and we are also probably going to combine this to save costs with the crosswalk painting that we need to do anyway. And while we were talking about the crosswalk painting, we had a brief discussion whether or not we would want to repaint the red lines at the crosswalks or just repaint with white. We haven't made any decision about it, but red lines are an extra cost, so we need to decide whether it's really worth it. Matt did give a summary about the current curb ramp constructions and paving. And under Public Works, we did discuss various flood mitigation options for the Harvard Run and Braemar Road area, but I will give more detail on those under Stormwater Authority. And Matt also briefly mentioned the Lenox Street sidewalk project. So currently Lenox Street is being blocked to vehicular traffic in the morning and in the afternoon to allow children to walk to and from Eisenhower. We received a grant from DCED of $350,000. And so we are currently figuring out how we will use that grant to construct a sidewalk on Lenox Street and where exactly that sidewalk could go. We talked about snow removal, which is hard to believe with the weather today, but it's not so long ago that we were fighting a lot of snow. So there was some discussion about safety issues with children playing and sledding at Seabird Park while Seabird Park is being plowed. So that's dangerous, but we also want to give children an opportunity to go sledding. So there's various options what we could do. One option would be closing the park to vehicular traffic while it's being plowed, public notices, and limiting the people that go there during plowing. That would require installing a gate at Cumberland Boulevard, because we cannot just do it with our regular traffic barriers. So that will be another item that we will discuss for next year's budget. Also, Public Works is requesting members of the public to refrain from walking and running in the middle of the street during an active snowstorm while plowing operations are underway. It's dangerous. You don't want to get run over by a snowplow. And also, if you have an off-street parking space, please use it. Please park in the off-street parking space. Do not park on the street so the street can be efficiently plowed. That is all about Public Works. Questions?
No questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Louisa. For Community and Business Relations, Kevin, what would you like to tell us?
All right, thanks. So we had a resident make a request of us on behalf of a community group that they would like to use the cemetery for an event in August. It's an event to commemorate Camp Hill's history. So the issue here is, so the cemetery is owned by Camp Hill and maintained by Public Works. It is an active cemetery with active burials, interments, typically unscheduled, right? So it's hard to coordinate an event that's definitely going to happen in August, or would like to happen in August, versus an unplanned event that might happen in a cemetery, somebody passing away, that their family needs to use the cemetery. So because this is a complicated issue and the cemetery is maintained by Public Works, we decided to punt this to Public Works.
Sorry, I omitted to talk about the cemetery issue. We had some discussion at Public Works about this, and the final result of the discussion was that we would request the people that are organizing this event, who unfortunately have left, okay, to submit a special event request form, and then we will take it from there.
Also, you punted it to a committee you're also on. So you didn't get out of it.
I feel like I'm on a lot of committees.
It does, right?
So thanks, Louisa.
So as for the special events
special events form,
What do we call
Sarah?
that?
Yeah, we have a permit form.
Permit. They've completed.
But I
Okay,
mean,
so
like
it's
for
been-
that, wouldn't it help like and this could just be me guessing, but if there's someone is actually using the cemetery for a different purpose than a get-together, could we have it at a different time, perhaps? Like,
You have to talk to the organizers.
right? Well, and I think that, you know, just when you're filling out the form, I don't know if it would make a difference, but.
Good?
Yeah, so Sarah has received the form, and I guess,
We'll talk about it.
Oh, you got it already?
yeah,
Oh, awesome.
yeah. So we'll talk about it.
So parking continues to be a hot topic. As Louisa has mentioned, this is another issue that came up in our committee to talk about parking along Market Street and line painting. So that, again, this goes back to Public Works. They have the money for that, so test eventually. Task number 2 for Public Works. In addition, we will be installing wayfinding signs. We have 4 locations identified. The idea here is that the wayfinding signs will help guide, be a visual cue to guide people that are out of town to where they can park, various amenities within the borough. So stay tuned for those. They should be going up here shortly. The other issue that came up was, so we had a lot of concerns about some of our larger projects, even though we are sending letters out to residents to notify them that projects are going on. Letters have a lot of information, and I think people just want sort of the Reader's Digest version of what's going on. So what Community and Business Relations decided to do was request to have an open house to talk about, particularly the paving project that's in the 20th to 15th and Walnut to High Street area, which is what we did tonight from 6 to 6:45. Very much appreciate Lester and Colton and Sarah for putting that all together, and HRG for showing up to help us out. Much appreciated. I think that was really well done. All right, the biggest portion of the meeting was taken up by our discussion of moving towards a Main Street program. So if you don't know, Camp Hill already has the Downtown Camp Hill Association, which is sort of a pseudo Main Street program, but not really there quite yet. There's specific requirements to be in the Main Street program. The biggest one is that you have to have a full-time program manager. Our downtown coordinator, Beth Taylor, is currently a part-time employee and only works even fewer hours on the downtown stuff. So this past month, so one of the things that we requested out of the Community and Business Relations is for Ms. Taylor to look at what is the requirements to become a Main Street. We know what some of the basic guidelines are, but more in depth. What will it take us to get there? So you'll see in your packets, there's a very thorough report from our downtown coordinator about all the events that she's attended, including attending the Pennsylvania Downtown Center's managers meeting with DCHA's president. This is one of the requirements for meeting the Main Street America designation. And the funding to attend that program was provided by DCHA. Ms. Taylor also attended the Community Revitalization Academy on February 25th, which is a series of workshops designed to provide Main Street managers with intermediate level instruction based on the Main Street approach. So Main Street America is an organization program that's put on by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation says you have to do certain things. So we're trying to start the motion for that. So that workshop, again, was funded by DCHA. One of the other requests that we had Ms. Taylor was to start talking to DCED. DCED provides a lot of funding for Main Street program. You have to be in a Main Street program to get funding from them. Some of the funding could be like facade restoration, things like that. So we're getting there. Let's see. Lastly, the weather's starting to warm up. Spring Fling is coming, so mark your calendars. April 11th is when Spring Fling will be. And then our next meeting is next Tuesday. Thanks. Any questions? And
Thanks for that report. Parks and Rec is next. Tia.
Hello, neighbors and friends. The committee met on Monday, March 2nd. We do have 3 action items for consideration of council today, as noted in your packet. The Camp Hill Aquatic Club is requesting to authorize swim meet dates at the Borough Pool and place signs in borough parks. The Friends of Frederickson Library is requesting to post signs in borough parks. And Camp Hill Canadensis is looking to, you guessed it, post signs in borough parks. So those are all up for consideration today. Some updates and highlights from our Parks and Recreation Department. Bunny Extravaganza is on March 20th, and there is still time to register. It must be completed by March 13th. This is a super awesome event where you get to drop your kids off and walk away. Because our incredible group of volunteers will look after them and provide them very exciting Easter activities. You do have to come back for them, but you get some respite there, which is well received. Summer camp registration is ongoing. We have lots of options available for parents this year, from youth sports camps, including a Brazilian World Cup soccer camp, STEM and science camps, and even Lego camps. There really is something for everyone. Please check out the borough website for more information. And while you are here, Audrey, please thank her because she just does an incredible job providing this robust set of camp options for our community. Now I will break all of your hearts and let you know, yay! We love Audrey. Now to break your heart, Seabird Park Day Camp is now full. You cannot register for that anymore. I am sorry. You will have to look at the other really awesome camps to sign your kids up for. Summer staffing is underway. All camp counselor positions have been filled. Lifeguard interviews are about to be complete, and we are still accepting applications for the Snack Shack. Again, thank you to Audrey, powerhouse, completing all these interviews and getting these positions filled. The committee did discuss some 250th anniversary of the United States ideas. We'll continue kind of discussing those in partnership with the Community and Business Relations Committee. Pool passes are still available to purchase on the website, and swim lesson dates have been added to the website. The registration will start in May. The Recreation Commission, not to be confused with the Recreation Committee, is going to be meeting on April 14th. That time has changed. It was originally scheduled for 6 o'clock. It has been bumped to 7 o'clock, and that will be in the Borough Conference Room. The public is welcome to attend, as always. As you explore the website and all of these amazing things I've mentioned, you might want to reach out to Audrey. Just note that she is going to be at the PRPS conference at Spooky Nook, March 24th to 26th, but she will promptly check your emails when she returns. The committee will meet again on Monday, April 6th, and I hope to see you all there. That's my report.
Thank you, Tia. Any questions? None. How could there be questions? Okay, planning and zoning. Tom.
All right. You'll note in your packet that Colton has provided a monthly report on code enforcement in February. He responded to 171 calls and complaints, sent 306 emails, and issued 35 building, zoning, dumpster, and shade tree permits. He also inspected 13 residential units. And I think, again, that rental inspection process is going pretty well. Good. The committee proper met February 20th. We made note of the peddlers and solicitors ordinance, which last month was put up for advertisement, and we'll have an action item tonight to vote on that ordinance. It's a slight revision of the ordinance that we had in the past. We had additional input on the new traffic calming resolution, which, as to borrow a term from that Tim used, it's complicated. And it's not quite ready for adoption tonight, but we'll have it in good form by next meeting. We had a pretty terrific presentation by Troy Truax of Michael Baker International Consulting Firm, who provided a useful discussion about the development of comprehensive plans, which we're about to start working on. He discussed the process, recommended a development of a 10-year plan, which we were talking about anyway, and explained what to expect as the process moves along. We also had a brief discussion of the recurring parking regulation issue, and he included a good discussion of pros and cons of which way to go. So we look forward to working on that with whomever we get for a consultant in the fairly near future. In the context of the comprehensive plan, we also had a brief discussion about goals, and we'll continue to work on those for the next year and 3 years and 10 years. And risking having tomatoes thrown at me, I'm going to bring up us re-examining the idea of a single-use plastic bag ordinance. Not popular with the business community, but the data, which I review regularly, of the harmful effects of microplastics is horrible. Medical problems, psychological problems, perhaps some relationship to autism, et cetera. So we're not going to force that down anyone's throat, but we're going to open the discussion up. I'm leaning toward being in favor of it, but I'm only one vote, and we'll have an open discussion of that with the business community and the rest of the community. It was noted that the codification project is almost finished and will soon come to council for finalization. With regard to the discovery that Louisa talked about some properties that have on-lot sewer systems that we didn't know about, we're now pushing for an action item, an ordinance to take care of that problem, so there are regular inspections of those systems. And so we will vote on that tonight for advertisement. We also had some discussion about a landowner easement and O&M agreement that we'll take up next time as well. That we thought that was going to be an action item, but again, things are complicated. But that'll occur at next meeting. And as part of Colton's report, he discussed issues with snow removal. Not everybody shovels their sidewalks, and some businesses in particular are problematic. But what Colton has done is paid particular attention to the walking routes to school, so that for safety purposes, kids who walk to school have a safe travel, and he prioritized that. That's my report. Any questions from Borough?
So Tom, a plastic ban, bag ban, would that start in Community and Business Relations, since we're Community and Business Relations, or are you just going to take it up in planning and zoning?
Well, that's a good question. I think planning and zoning is going to raise the question, and maybe your committee needs to begin to talk about it.
Well, let them start the discussion, and then they can give us guidance what they want.
We had brought it up at Community and Business Relations, when was that, 2 years ago? I think Bonnie, Louisa, you were there.
I remember.
Yeah. Bonnie, I think, had brought it up before us, so.
Tom remembers too.
Oh, sure. We know it's controversial, and businesses don't want to do it, but
Okay, let's not discuss
yeah,
it.
we don't have to discuss it, right? I agree.
Any other questions? Okay.
Well, the next meeting, the next
Sorry.
exciting meeting of planning and zoning is, as I said, March 20th at
You're gonna
8:15 in
have
the morning.
You're going to have an exciting meeting.
Right.
That's good. No, it's not. Okay. Rich, last but not least, admin and finance.
I will try and keep it brief since I know we're running long tonight. So we met on February 23rd at 1 p.m. We heard our finance director's report. Our accounts are performing well. Our audit is nearing completion, so we should be done with that hopefully within the next couple of weeks. What else was there? Oh, yeah, so we discussed briefly the Hamden Township sewer fine. Hopefully within the next month or so, there will be some discussions to try and resolve that long-standing fine that we've had. Let's see, volunteer position openings. We did have a candidate that was strong, Matthew Carpenter, but he pulled out. We have 2 alternates that are actually standing by now for the emergency management coordinator and deputy coordinator positions, which will solidify the Forbes name, I think, in Camp Hill history as the most number of family members sitting on any kind of position. Yeah. So hopefully next week we'll get them on the agenda and we'll get them voted in. We do still have openings in sustainability. What is it, 2 still? Yep, 2 positions opening. If you're interested in serving your community and sustainability is interest to you, I urge any one of you who actually showed up tonight to step up. Let's see, we still are looking for a zoning hearing board alternate, but I don't know that anyone's even stepped forward with interest, but if someone is interested in sitting in as an alternate on the zoning hearing board, we could use someone there as well. And then last but not least, we had a lengthy discussion about the banking RFPs after some input we had received at the last council meeting. It was a little bit contentious and even got a little difficult in spots, but at the end of the day, we decided not to move forward with the RFP. It did spur some other discussions about maybe periodically reviewing some of our longstanding agreements and seeing if they still made sense and maybe putting out requests for additional information, but that will maybe happen at the next admin and finance meeting. And other than that, there was no additional public comment, and our next meeting is on March 23rd at 1 p.m.
Any questions for Rich? None. Okay. Then let's move on to liaisons, and we will start with Tim for Borough and School District.
The team did not meet last month, but the next meeting is April 22nd at 6 p.m. at the District Administration Building.
Thank you, Tim. Louisa for Stormwater Authority.
Okay, the Stormwater Authority met yesterday. They are updating the stormwater rules and regulations, just a few small updates, and also to make sure it reflects the new fees. And then I promised you more details about the Harvard Run study. So HRG has been working on recommendations how we can mitigate the flooding in the Harvard and Bramer Road area. Previously, they had identified 2 options. One would be to increase the capacity in the Deanhurst Culvert and reroute some pipes through Chestnut Street. That would be a great solution, but the cost estimate was $40 million, which we don't have. The other option was to not do any kind of pipe replacement, but focus on upstream storage. I don't have the price tag for that, but it was similarly expensive. So then HRG went back and tried to look at a hybrid option that would include some storage and some increasing of pipe capacity. So again, they came up with 2 options. One would be a small rerouting of pipes, much smaller than the previously discussed project, that would eliminate a bottleneck that currently exists. And currently it's a diagonal pipe under houses, and it would be rerouted under the street. And so that would only cost $4 million, but it would be sized for a 2-year storm. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but it would help. According to HRG, that could help, that could provide like 80% of the solution. The storage option, that would only provide 20% of the solution, but would help us meet our MS4 criteria. That would be underground storage under the giant parking lot. That is estimated to cost $7 million. So then they discussed what we should prioritize. So first of all, there is another project for which we have already received grant funding. So we have $400,000 in grant funding. We asked for $500,000, but that's what we got. And that is for a project that's almost ready to go. That would be to install a parallel pipe to the existing pipe on Harvard Avenue. So this project, if that goes ahead, that would work well with the projects I just discussed. So then the authority decided to ask HRG to go ahead with a proposal, so a more detailed proposal about the parallel pipe on Harvard Avenue. So they're thinking to go ahead with that. And then to keep the bottleneck expansion project for the near future, and the storage project for the not so near future. Especially, we want to wait until the DEP publishes the revised MS4 permits. Okay, so this was a little bit too much detail for most of you probably. But now you get a bit of an idea what they talk about at Stormwater Authority. Yes, I see a question.
So yes, there's a question. Okay, so we talked about one solution would be an 80% solution, one was a 20% solution. Do we have any numbers for the parallel pipe? Somewhere in between the two?
So for the parallel pipe portion, pretty much either option you would go with, that would be an ultimate necessity, as that's like the most downstream portion. We're currently preparing that proposal right now. That'll come to the Stormwater Authority for their next meeting. I cannot give you a concrete number on an estimate, unfortunately, at this time.
That's fair. And then do we have any idea when the next MS4 regulations are coming out?
That's the multi-million-dollar question.
Never when they say anyway, right?
One of the solutions that was discussed is around storage underneath of the giant parking lot. I think we had talked about this at Public Works at one point. Have we had any conversations with that property manager of like allowing that to happen? Like, is that feasibly an option at all? Not yet.
No, there's been no efforts, at least from HRG's side. It was more just for the amount of water that we would need to store. It was okay, where's
Like,
the
where's
best
the
point that it
space?
drains to, and where's the biggest space, and that would be giant.
Understood.
Everything, right? Okay, thank you very much for that report. Alex, give us a report from your school.
So spring sports started on March 2nd for both the middle and high school. The 9th and 12th grade class councils are doing something a little unconventional, and they're doing a teacher sumo wrestling event as a fundraiser on Friday. So if you're interested, it's $5 to attend, and there's over 22 teachers participating. Tickets for the high school show Chicago are on sale now, and I'm excited to announce that Camp Hill's Minithon raised over $115,000 for kids battling pediatric cancer.
Okay. Did you guys have any questions for Alex? I'm sorry, I didn't even ask. Tom, you are up.
Sustainability. Yeah. The Sustainability Committee met February 23rd. The committee discussed their wish list of things, and they would love to have a part-time sustainability coordinator. They want to throw that into the hopper for discussion for 2027. The task of implementing the Climate Action Plan is varied and complex, and that person would be very helpful in the process. But that needs to go to the committee and administration, et cetera. They discussed developing software to assist the monitoring of complex set of recommended actions. So a lot of things are going on, and this group of, half of them are academics, are looking at some way to follow the goals along and document when they're met, et cetera. The group talked about other goals for 2026 that include a street light program to switch to energy-efficient warm LED lights, further support for the use of solar panels for residents, and maybe even our schools as well as other borough buildings, support for residential use of energy-efficient lighting, exploration of ways to improve accessibility for walking and biking in the borough, consideration of public charging stations for EVs, and perhaps developing a stance on energy-hungry data centers that are cropping up in communities and raising energy costs for a lot of local communities. The committee still needs other members. If anyone is interested, what we encourage people to do is show up at one of the meetings, see what goes on, no commitment at that point, and then if it looks like something you'd like to be involved in, then you could join. The next meeting is tomorrow, 1 p.m. So, yeah. That's my report. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Tom?
How are we going to pay for the sustainability coordinator?
It's a wish list.
Okay, Downtown Camp Hill Association. Tim, do you have a report for us?
Yeah, so we talked about some of the items actually that were discussed a little earlier today, just a little bit more detail. So the annual DCHA MOU is up for renewal. That will, can we add that to the agenda for the next meeting to discuss? Ultimately, Rich, you'll get a draft of that once we discuss that. I also talked to the committee about Pennsylvania Municipal League. They were unaware of that entity, and I just walked them through some of the key things that they're responsible for, so that might be an ongoing conversation just as a resource of information in the event that they're not able to make that meeting tomorrow. The Downtown Camp Hill coordinator also provided an update on a meeting she attended on February 24th at Pennsylvania's Downtown Center State Managers Meeting with other municipalities who have successfully advocated for a full-time executive director for their downtown programs, and then relayed some of the positive things that came out of those conversations. As part of Kevin's report, a little bit more detail, she also is enrolled in a 3-part training series on advocating for local Main Street with Main Street America. It's a 3-part course. It offers a roadmap for crafting the materials, putting a plan in action, and then understanding how local government budgets work. So that might be useful information. And then finally, I don't see any of the members here tonight, but DCHA as a committee would like to be placed on a future agenda to go through what their, I'll call their initial vision looks like. And so they'll be requesting some time here in the next month or two to make a short presentation. Lastly, the farmers market planning is currently underway. There's 10 vendors who have secured their spots for the season and have been invoiced accordingly. That's my report.
Do we have a date for the farmer's market yet?
Do I have a date? I do not. I have a date for the next committee meeting. May 5th.
May
May 5th it is.
All right, May 5th, you guys get ready. Next, we have Frederickson Library. Tia.
Hello again. Besides the really great updates we received during the public comment section on Frederickson Library, as well as all of the vital services and resources they provide to our community, the library does an incredible job of bringing our community members together by providing cultural enrichment for all ages. This month alone, for the adults here, kicking off Friday, March 13th, the library will be showing a series of Oscar-nominated short films that are produced by international contenders for the 98th Annual Academy Awards. Friday, March 13th, will be animated films, a series of 6 short films rated PG to PG-13. Saturday, there will be 5 live-action short films, and Sunday, there will be a series of documentaries. So a full list of those included short films can be found on the Frederickson website. For our children of the community, March 21st, Frederickson is hosting Snow White, a fairy tale adventure with the PA Ballet Academy. This is a story-based movement class that will walk through kind of the story of Snow White and see dances performed by the PA Ballet Academy. This is for boys and girls ages 3 through 8. No registration required. More info on the website. And then for all ages, March 22nd, Frederickson is having Seasons in Concert. Seasons is an award-winning Celtic new folk group out of central Pennsylvania. Their albums have received national acclaim and radio play, and several band members have competed in Ireland at the highest level of Irish music competition. This event is for all ages. It is a great way to spend your day on March 22nd. So that is my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Tia or for Jessica? Right? Okay. Lastly, CapCog, we meet next week, 2 weeks, 10 days or so. So we have no reports for that. We have now reached, amazingly, our second period of public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, name, address, whatever comments you would like to make for 3 minutes, please.
Sure. I'm Bethany Constant. I live at 2300 Kent Street, right over next to the cemetery. And I'm going to comment on the cemetery event that you called it, which doesn't make it sound the greatest. So, did you know that cemeteries were public parks? If you look back at pictures from the 1800s and early 1900s, what do you see? You see graves, but you see people sitting at them, communing with each other, hosting picnics, being with their loved ones. We're not trying to do that this year, but what we are trying to do is bring people back to the cemetery to learn about who their neighbors were. Our history is really important. I'm a member of the Camp Hill Historical Society. My undergraduate degree is in history, and spending time in cemeteries is something that I think we can embrace more than we do in our modern society. And so our Camp Hill Historical Society is looking at creating a cemetery tour. If you look at progressive cities and towns, this is not a new concept. A lot of them are doing this. And so what we would like to do is to offer an opportunity to our community members to come and learn and be educated about the wonderful people who were part of our community but who are no longer with us. So what we're going to do is we have volunteer docents who are researching people who are now in the cemetery. They're going to tell you who they were, what they were involved in our community, the great value that they added, and by learning about our past, it can certainly inform our future. We also have, for those of you who haven't walked through, I've walked through there many times, again, I live right next door to it. We have graves from the 1700s. We have, obviously, to modern times. We have many veterans of many wars from the 1800s on to modern times. We have teachers. We have children who were at the Soldiers' Orphanage School who died of typhoid when they were there after losing both parents during the Civil War. We have even the person who invented the jaws of life buried in our cemetery. So we have so many things that we can learn about who our community is and who it has been because of the people who are buried there. So what we're asking as the Historical Society is let's not forget our past. Let's not forget the people who made this borough a wonderful borough. And let's pay our respects to them by visiting them at their grave and learning about them. What we have proposed in our application, which is August 22nd, which is a Saturday, we're proposing a 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock time frame. That's still enough daylight in the summer, but most people who are buried, their services are usually in the morning or afternoon. So our application purposefully is trying to avoid any potential conflicts. Of course, the whole point of this is to respect the people who have passed. So if there did end up being a conflict on that day, we would certainly look for, the ability to reschedule as appropriate. So I hope that you will consider this information as you're thinking about what you will bless, approve, whatever the appropriate process is. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, Phil Vollmer, 2935 Lincoln Street, and this is back to the ordinance. I think from what I heard this evening, you're inclined to pass one, and I hope you make it strong. Anti-ice. I know you said it shouldn't be anti-ice, but I think it has to be. Ice is out of control. They need to be reined in, and maybe an ordinance like this in combination with similar ones from around the country, like, for example, the samples that we had of Harrisburg, Carlisle, Columbus, Ohio. Maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it'll get the message through. I don't know. But ice needs to be reined in. The only other thing I would say is the Columbus, Ohio, I guess I should call it an ordinance, included the school district. And I wonder if your ordinance could do that, or if not, if you could persuade the school district to make a statement similar to what Columbus did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Jamie Quisenberry, and I live at 2021 Arlington Street. And I just wanted to express my support for a welcoming ordinance here in Camp Hill Borough. And I thank all of the council members who are in support of this. I do support our police, and I thank you so much for the work that you do every day. And I am happy to hear that you do not wish to enter into a 287G agreement. I believe a welcome ordinance is aligned with that belief and that thought process, and also just further formalizes and supports that concept. Our community, as the youngest members of our community that attend our public schools know, is strengthened by diversity. And we, as a community, expressing that openly and publicly, are only strengthened by this. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mark Hoover, South 24th Street, 20 South 24th. I can tell from the conversation I'm not going to be very popular here tonight. This is the first time I've heard the term of welcoming ordinance. Sounds to me like creating a welcoming ordinance is another term for a sanctuary city. And from the dialogue here tonight, it's quite clear that you've already made up your mind to effectively create something of that nature. Just to state this, and I think there's more people in this town than you'd imagine that would agree with this statement. I don't support people here illegally. I don't support people whose first act in coming to the United States is to break federal immigration laws. Helping illegals by actively stating that we are a sanctuary town is a political action in spite of claims to the contrary. The majority of U.S. citizens, according to all polls, want to deport all illegals. What I'm saying is, if you succeed in creating a sanctuary town, you will only succeed in further dividing the people in this town, neighbor versus neighbor, family member versus family member, and friend versus soon-to-be ex-friend. please, my advice, leave well enough alone. You don't have to do anything. Just respect the wishes of the police department. Do what you've been doing. We don't have to act. We don't have to pass an ordinance. We don't have to tell the world, look at us, look at what we're doing. We're Camp Hill, look how progressive we are. What we need to do is keep in mind you're going to be dividing this town more. We've already got enough division in this town. We've got enough people hating on each other. We've got enough people that are this versus that. This is a political act. Saying it isn't does not change the fact. So please consider doing nothing. Just see what the police department wants to do, how they want to handle it, and enact policies that allow that to happen. I don't care about anything except keeping this town functional and peaceful, and I don't think by dividing them further, by creating an ordinance that's gonna split us up some more, is the way to do it. This is not why you were elected. You weren't elected to divide this town, and this will divide this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sharifat Forsia, and I live on 2102 Mayfred Lane. I'm an immigrant, and I've been here for a long, long time. I think the chief of police is right, and I thank you for what you guys are doing. What I'm here to say is that the police have to have a clear instructions and definition on what they can do and what they cannot do. They shouldn't be pulled into something when they are not prepared. This is not a political issue. We have to be safe, and nobody is saying Campi is a sanctuary city. Our children need to be safe. Everybody needs to be safe. The goal is that the police, they have to have a clear definition of what they need to do. And I hope that if it comes to the point where federal agents have to come in here, they have the decency and respect to have a conversation with the local police and inform them that we're here and this is what we're doing, and not just badging and do whatever. And anybody who is walking around needs to show a badge and be proud enough to say, this is what I'm doing and this is who I am. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Macharaju, and I'm from Columbia Avenue. I just was listening here today about the proposed ordinance, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts. The best way to keep law and order in our community is to respect law and order and allow law and order to do their function. I've heard one of you say we have had ICE activity in our borough, and another one said surrounding areas. I'm not sure if anyone on this panel is privy to that, but if ICE has been operating, it's clearly been doing it in a peaceful way without obstruction, doing their function. I've also heard one of you, I think it was Mr. Fink, say that ICE has a legitimate function, but there's been overstepping. To be fair, there's overstepping on the part of protesters at times, and this is an area where police have to be freed to step in when protesting becomes obstruction, which can happen in an instant and can become tragic in an instant. You need to fully address that in your ordinance. And I just want to close thanking the police for enforcing laws that keep Camp Hill safe. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Julie Barker. I just moved to Camp Hill less than 2 years ago. I'm not super comfortable sharing my address right now. So my husband is active duty military. We moved 6 times. We moved to a war zone in Bahrain, and we arrived in Camp Hill, and I told my husband, we're gonna retire here. This is the best neighborhood I've been to. I moved from France. I traveled the world. And now this is where I want to stay. I
love the community, I love the police, but today I'm scared. I'm scared because I don't know what's going to happen to me. I am legal, I have a US citizenship, but just 1 year ago, I discovered that Social Security didn't record that I was a US citizen. I was still a non-US citizen for the Social Security. I could have been arrested by ICE. Something could have happened to me, something could have happened to my son. I changed my statute, now everything is clear, but there are thousands of people out there who didn't know that Social Security didn't update their statute. I'm not the only one. It's something that came up 1 year ago and nobody knew about it. So yes, I do ask you guys to do something about it, to have a clear vision, because mistakes happen. ICE arrested US citizens before. It will happen again. And sometimes they make mistakes. They only take records from Social Security, who is not updating all their information. So yes, have a clear view so we can feel protected. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Maya, and I live at 2203 Parkside Road. And I am really glad that you are looking at having a welcoming ordinance. This really is a welcoming community, and in times like these, when some people who live here are scared, it's really good for us to let them know that we welcome them in an active way, and not just say nothing. Because so many other people, when you say nothing, you are basically saying that you aren't going to help them. You're basically saying that you're not seeing what's going on with them, to them, and could happen to them. And there are families, there are kids who are scared. And whether they are US citizen kids who might go to our schools, but whose parents may be in a situation that's more at risk, all of those situations, these are our neighbors and our friends and parts of our community, and folks who are really contributing in wonderful ways. I don't think we've seen at all the people that ICE says they're really going after in our community. So I know I don't want them here, and I would be glad to know that we are not going to cooperate with them if they come here, and that we will really be working to help our neighbors and our friends stay safe. I mean, one of the most beautiful things we did in the school district, and I was on the school board for 4 years, one of the things we did in the school district last year for the first time, we'll do it again this year in April, is our Cultural Heritage Festival. We thought when we did it that we might have, oh, this would be great if we maybe have 5 tables. We had 23 different countries represented in our little school district for our Cultural Heritage Day, and there were several families at each table. And personally, I want every single one of those children and their families to know that we value them and to know that we're on their side and that we welcome them. So thank you for moving toward this. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Matt McKnight. I live on 25th Street, 216 North 25th, and I just wanted to lend my support to the ordinance, whether we call it a welcome ordinance or a sanctuary city ordinance or anything like that. I think we could all agree that upholding the Constitution of the United States is important and is not partisan in any way, and I think we can all agree that a policy made by a local government is by definition political, and I don't think it matters whether we define it as political or apolitical if it's the right thing to do. People with integrity do the right thing, whether it's labeled as such or not. And I just want to say that if a federal agency is credibly accused of violating the Constitution, that committing local resources to support that agency is not just questionable policy, it's questionable stewardship. Thank you.
I guess I'm the other unpopular one today. Before I begin, though, I would like to commend Councilman Jackson on his work with the CSC and his continued good work with Public Works. Appreciate it. My thoughts are on unintended and unanticipated consequences like we saw in Minnesota. I've heard Minnesota. Could you just state your name? Yeah, I'm sorry. Dave Still, Apple Tree Road. Since there have been no egregious acts reported or committed by ICE in the borough, and they are here, and they have been doing ICE extractions of criminals, okay? They're not taking people off the street. There's no one here that's being pulled out of school. I mean, all of this is nonsense. It's not what's happening. You know, you're raising issues and sending up red flares for absolutely no reason at this point. Basically, the reason that things have not been going poorly is likely due to existing cooperation with immigration enforcement. So this begs the question, why are you doing this? I think that was mentioned by one of the council people. Because restricting law, police actions, whether local, state, or federal, does not make the borough a safer place in any way. In fact, just the opposite may occur, as we did observe in certain other parts of the country. By limiting cooperation of local and state policing activities and thus forcing immigration activities into the streets, as we observed in some other areas, instead of allowing it to occur peacefully in secure locations, resulted in an influx of agitators who then trained locals on how to obstruct lawful policing actions. This resulted in unbelievable unintended consequences for both law enforcement and the public. We can't have that here. You're going to draw a lot of attention to this area when there's nothing going on that's a problem. The ICE agents that are here are acting in a legal way. There's nothing going crazy anywhere. Why create an environment where it could happen? Secondly, putting untrained, emotionally charged residents in the middle of legal police actions is dangerous and foolish, as we saw in other places, and has resulted in a myriad of unintended, even deadly consequences for both the public and law enforcement. We don't want that here. Any language included in a proposed ordinance that in any way impedes or restricts the lawful actions of local, state, or federal policing puts residents of the borough in further jeopardy. Such an ordinance, should it result in harm or even worse to residents, may have unintended council consequences.
Mr. Still, time's up.
I don't think anyone else was cut off. I was counting, and they were going way over 3 minutes.
The first person went over, and they were asked to
Well, then let me finish, if somebody did go over.
We're trying to keep the meeting going. We stated at the beginning we were going to do 3 minutes. There are a lot of people here that want to offer comments, so in fairness to them, I'd like to move it along.
Madam President?
Well, it's why I asked him to keep time for all of the comments.
But some can go over and some can't.
One person did go over and we stopped them.
I was back there, several people went over.
We really have been keeping track.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Riley from South 17th Street in Camp Hill. First, I want to thank Sarah for helping Camp Hill's Birdtown. She really helped us take flight to rise to the level of reaching the silver award, so thank you very much. I would like to address the resolution issue, and I do appreciate that our mayor repeated his words that were said last week when the TV cameras were here. So thank you for repeating that, because not everyone heard that. I did send you a letter today. I thought I should share it with the rest of the committee. Mayor Simpson, thank you for expressing your concern that it may look political to consider some kind of resolution to address potential ICE activity in our especially great little town. It doesn't really seem political to me to support our police along with rule of law, due process, appropriate warrants, and respectful enforcement. That's what some proactive measures could actually ensure, so that our police are never put in a situation to cooperate with masked, unidentified agents who may engage in profiling or violating other human rights. And our residents need not fear our police, who are supposed to be keeping the peace for everyone in the community. The community is grateful for your service and oversight of our fire and police departments, and it's understandable to want to avoid conflict or confrontation or drawing too much attention. But I'm asking that you consider how there is evidence that some ICE agents could create problems rather than help our community. That would be the only political or ideological consideration that, as Kevin said, actually is coming from the federal government. Most of us have seen and heard for ourselves the violations that ICE has committed. So I did ask if you could respond whether you think it would be appropriate for a reasonable set of guardrails that might help our own police and our community at large, respectfully. Since then, coming to the meeting, I am so impressed by the very thoughtful consideration that our Borough Council members have put into this. And I also thank Mayor Simpson and the chief. Two things in their response to your thoughtful analysis is the mention of ideology. And again, I think that the ideology problem comes from people not being willing to recognize that all humans are deserving of due process, and that ICE and the current administration is not adhering to that. And then how to make sure that we retain or act duty to respond. Duty to respond. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sean McCormack. I'm a borough resident, live on South 15th Street. I'm also the district attorney here in Cumberland County and proudly serve the citizens of Cumberland County. I appreciate the discussion that you're having here tonight, and I appreciate the thought that has gone in to this discussion and the consideration of a ordinance here for Camp Hill. I want to bring the discussion back to what we're really talking about, though. We're not talking about having any control over what ICE is going to do or not do in Camp Hill. You can pass an ordinance, but that's not going to stop ICE from coming into Camp Hill. It's not going to stop ICE from wearing masks. It's not going to stop them from doing all the things that they want to do. What you are considering is restricting what our law enforcement officers are able to do. And one of the things that the chief mentioned, which is prompting me to stand up here today, is the obligation that our officers have to step in when something is being done that is violating the rights of our citizens and the people that reside in this borough. The lesson that I've learned over the years that I've been in the district attorney's offices is that when we have cooperation, when we have communication between different levels of law enforcement, that's where we're able to deconflict any potential issues that may arise. One of the examples that I use is an example that happened in the city of Harrisburg a number of years ago, where state police officers were patrolling through the city of Harrisburg and came to encounter a young individual that either spit at or flipped them off as they were driving through. They pursued that individual, arrested him, put him in handcuffs, and forced him to sit on the curb on Walnut Street down by the police station. Local law enforcement was present during that stop and that interaction. And during that interaction, the individual was mouthing off to the state troopers and at one point in time spit at or on one of the state troopers. That trooper's reaction was to kick that individual in the head. That only came to light because there were local police officers present during that enforcement operation that was occurring. That only came to life because a Harrisburg City police officer reported that illegal activity and brought it to the attention of the district attorney's office. That trooper is no longer a trooper. He was fired, he was prosecuted, and the only thing I ask you to consider is the consequences of restricting the police in what they do. And thank you for your time.
Put this on. I would like to thank you all for commenting and being engaged and being involved and sharing your thoughts with us. Because, yes, there is still one more period of public comment. So, let's move on to our action items. Do I have a motion and a second to appoint Colby Snyder as the borough's sewage enforcement officer and Michelle Vaeda as the alternate sewage enforcement officer? Thank you. Okay, Louisa moves, Kevin seconds. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, do I have a motion and a second to approve the request from the Camp Hill Aquatic Club to authorize swim meet dates and signs in the borough parks? Rich moves. Was that you, Tia? That was. All right, thank you very much. Rich moves, Tia seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the request from Friends of Frederickson Library to post signs? Second. Thank you. All right, Tia moves, Rich seconds. Any discussion? Are all in favor? Vote aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the request to post a sign for Canadensis Spaghetti Dinner at Willow Park? And the dinner's not at Willow Park, the sign would be at Willow Park, right? Thank you, Rich. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Rich moves, Tom seconds. Is there any discussion? Everyone in favor, vote aye, please.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 2026-01 to amend Chapter 150 of the Borough Code relating to peddling and soliciting?
So moved.
Second.
Tom moves, Louisa seconds. Is there any discussion? Everyone in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. Do I have a motion and a second to advertise an on-lot sewage disposal systems ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Tom moves, Kevin seconds. Is there any discussion about this? Everyone in favor, vote aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. And now we have reached our final period of public comment. Anyone who has held their tongue and would like to speak?
I am not making a comment about.
I'm timing you anyway, Rich. I'm timing
Rich
you
Mance,
anyway.
2000 Princeton. I never come to these meetings with anything prepared, but I always have something to say. I love the red striping on the sidewalks. They make Camp Hill stand out. bags. I personally use a reusable bag all the time. If you're writing a bag ordinance, be careful because Richmond enacted a bag ban and the problem got worse because they switched to heavier bags. If you do go to decide that, there's something you can start with that you don't even need approval because you're about to authorize the farmer's market for the year. Force them to use reusable bags, starting out there. Also, if you're going to do that, how about coming up with a Camp Hill bag? With the Bee City, Bird City, Green City logos all over it. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, Mark Hoover, 20 South 24th Street. I hate to ask you, but am I under the, if I had the correct impression that maybe you're advising that we not restrict the police in the way they're going to handle this by an ordinance? Okay, then what I'm saying, I just want to make clear before I spoke out of turn with something. I think the district attorney for the county is recommending that we not have an ordinance and tie the hands of the police. What are we doing here? Why are we discussing this if that's the advice? Are you the people that enforce the law, or are these two people the ones that enforce the law? I say let them make the decision how it's handled. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tiffany McKnight. I live on 25th Street. I processed a lot of what was said today, and I think several years ago I naively assumed that the Constitution was enough, the law was enough. I've seen enough videos over the last whatever to understand that it's not. The district attorney saying that the police need to police the ICE so that they can record the atrocities is bananas. An ordinance that says that we have to follow the law should not be necessary, but unfortunately, in our United States it is. So there's a lot of people here with privilege that do not understand what it's like to live in our country right now and be afraid to come here or afraid to give their address because of whatever they have lived their entire lives as and have never had to be afraid like that. Apparently, it's necessary for us to state the truth that I thought growing up was the default. That cops need to follow the laws, that federal officers need to follow the laws, the Constitution, our rights, but apparently we have to just keep saying it out loud. And that's all I have to say, especially when the district attorney is saying one thing. I thank you all for everything you guys have said today. It has helped a little bit of my love of Camp Hill. So thank you again.
David Margulis, 1714 Lincoln Drive. I wrote in a whole bunch of comments, but after hearing from different people, I just want to address a few points. One is that I've lived in the borough for 50 years, always supported the police, appreciated their efforts, and want to, I think as you mentioned, keep you focused on keeping the Camp Hill, serving the Camp Hill community and keeping us safe. I appreciate the thoughtful comments by all of you here and the fact that you're hearing from, comments from both sides of or different sides of the issue, different perspectives. As far as the argument that you would be politicizing this issue, I think that's, a rather odd comment when, really ICE has politicized this issue according to a recent PBS poll, nearly 2/3 of Americans who responded to that poll said that ICE has gone too far. And the other thing in terms of what the district attorney's office is that historically the federal government has come in ahead of time and coordinated their efforts, which I imagine they're still doing, with local governments. If that were still the case, we wouldn't be having the type of issues we see nationally. I did want to mention one thing that really affected me emotionally. I was talking to somebody just recently, an employee at the Campbell Shopping Center, and that person has been a naturalized U.S. citizen for a couple decades, but now is fearful of leaving their home without the security of having a passport. And no one should have to, no Camp Hill resident should have to live in that kind of fear. So for that reason, you know, I support the idea of you're looking at, but I think that there are, you know, very serious concerns raised by the mayor and chief of police that I hope you will incorporate into your ordinance. So thank you.
If there are no other comments, then I will ask for closing remarks by council, and this time we start with Rich.
Well, I'd like to thank the public for actually showing up for this. I wish we saw a crowd like this every month. That being said, I mean, this is a difficult issue. It's obvious there are a lot of concerns and things we need to consider in writing anything that we come up with, but I'd like to believe that I and my fellow council members will be able to come up with something that gets the point across without being, without interfering with our police's ability to do their jobs.
Tom.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the input and some of the emotion that I've heard from the audience. We listen. I think that what's going on now has some real historic significance. ICE, as it's currently composed, ICE has legitimate functions. As it's currently being directed, has violated the Constitution. That's clear cut. Has engaged in awful acts, killed people. There's something wrong about that. But what the battle is historic is that the executive branch is now asserting powers that our Constitution tries to limit. And it is up to the states and local communities to fight back, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to put constitutional limits on the actions of police. Our police act according to the Constitution. We'd like to see ICE do that as well. Nobody wants to stop them from legitimately extracting somebody who's a serious criminal or whatever. But that's not what is going on most of the time. All you have to do is watch television. Goodness, it's right in front of your eyes. So we're listening to what everyone's saying, but we want to do the right thing historically. That's my comment.
Thanks, Tom. Louisa.
Okay, yeah, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and for giving public comment. And we really appreciate your input, and we take our responsibility at planning and zoning seriously, and we hope that we will draft an ordinance that will take all of your comments into consideration.
Thank you, Louisa. Kevin?
I am not going to talk about this issue. Everybody else has already. So in February, I had an opportunity to attend the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs local chapter meeting. So this local chapter is between Cumberland and Franklin counties. This is probably one of the first times that anybody from Cumberland County has attended this meeting in a very long time. For obvious reasons, it's in Franklin County. Most of our meetings that are in Greencastle or Waynesboro. But PSAB and our local chapters are our advocates to the state organization and to the legislature. So ideas that are generated at these local levels percolate up to the state committee and then to the legislature. So for example, we passed 2 resolutions at this meeting. So the first one was to increase the millage rate that municipalities can charge for fire. So right now, you can only charge 3 mills for your fire departments, and they want to increase that to 10 mills. This is incredibly important when we're talking about the expense that comes with maintaining a fire department. Most fire equipment is up in the order of $1.5 million for one truck. So this is very expensive equipment that many municipalities are having a difficult time raising revenue for. So the second issue was a resolution to increase the prevailing wage law for any utility maintenance from $25,000 to $100,000. Again, it sounds mundane, but when you're a municipality that you're struggling for finances, these are very important issues. So by attending this meeting, and I would encourage anybody from council, I don't think there's any restrictions to anybody else attending, but they were very excited by me being there. By me being there, they're also thinking about having it closer, maybe in Carlisle. So I definitely encourage other council members to attend. Thanks.
Thanks for going, and then thanks for reporting back what happened. Tia.
Hello again. Thank you, everyone, for coming and participating this evening. A big reason of why I got involved in local government was because it's where real change can happen and where your voice can really be heard and where you can make a difference. You have direct access to your representatives, and it's really encouraging to see so many people participate in that process. Earlier, I asked you all to thank Audrey while you were here because of all the incredible work she does, but also sitting over here are Lester, Colton, Natalie, Beth. These are the people that make the borough go round. They are so incredibly important. And then Sarah, of course, 5 years of incredible service. So while you're here, please stop and thank them. Like, we have a lot of discussion. We get to be a lot of the face of this, but these are the people that do the real work. So thank you on behalf of myself, and I hope from the rest of the community as well. Thank you.
You know, many of the council members have thanked you guys for coming. I'll go one step further. I would encourage you to keep coming. This was an important topic to the community. There are a lot of important topics, one of which are how your tax dollars are spent. So every fall we get together and we vote on a budget. That's your money. There are crime issues that are also discussed that are important to the community. That was a pretty full meeting as well. I would encourage you to come to those. There are other issues, one of which was discussed here, MS4 stormwater, very complicated. Many of you may not know how large that budget is and some of the infrastructure issues that we face based on the aging pipes that we have under our streets. That's important. These are all public meetings, and we encourage everyone in this room and others who cannot make it to come as often as you can to not only voice your opinion, but be an active participant in what we do on your behalf. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and oh my gosh, Alex, I'm so sorry.
I guess all I have to say is to keep up with the school district. We do a lot of really cool, fun events that the community can get involved with. Speaking of Minithon, we do a community hour where the police and the fire department played dodgeball with our schools. So a lot of really awesome events that happen. So I would just encourage you guys all to keep up with the district calendar and to keep up with school events, because there are ways to get involved that are really important and really fun.